My name is Arcturus Ra. I have memories as a commander and scientific division of the Arcturian Timeline Council. And more and more that trickles in. My entire life I've been contacted. I was not popular in the beginning, like, realizing all of these things, but then figuring out actually why all of these memories and putting the pieces together, like how does life even on this planet make sense to me with all my experience, whether you want to call it indigo, starseed, crystal, or rainbow child. We have a lot of labels for a lot of things we can't explain. There's something extra going on that needs help, and that's required. Many, many souls are here for that purpose, and I think I'm one of them. I say, when people say, do you feel chosen? It's like you choose to be chosen. And then it comes up with responsibility, like in Marvel superhero comics. Like if you take on some power, then understand what you're doing with that power, even as an influencer, what you're sharing. So, and my background is actually quantum science, quantum physics, dealing with photons. How do you capture photons from a vacuum and put them into a storage medium, and what are the effects of photons on human life? Hence, when the sun hits a plant, the plant grows. But what are the mechanisms? What's the biochemical exchange happening? And globally, or in general, I would call that bioresonance. And so bioresonant engineering, conscious engineering, that's like my main topic. And the wellness of the human race as in consciousness and activation and expansion, refinement, and getting things in order while we're on this planet with all these chaotic, distorted views of values that people have thrown at us for thousands of years, to untangle that mess, rectify the order, set the record straight, and correct the timeline, and create a global timeline that everybody can agree on in science. I call it like the golden timeline. And that's when we can go actually infinite and away from the finite. The upgrade on the medbed, also the new medbed you see in the background here. My idea is to look at what's a photon. My extraterrestrial and higher self and oversoul contact with me from the future gives me the impression that everything that we call proton, muon, nuon, quarks, these are all photons. These are all holodynamic programs, if you will, in a three-dimensional holodynamic realm that have a certain resonance. So a neutron has that resonance, so that's actually a photon with that resonance, so we call that neutron. But they're all photons. The ETs call them holons, meaning program spheres with certain aspects given to them, and that builds the construct of three-dimensional realms. And you have a lot of dimensions from here to the hereafter that are perceived physically, because it takes the physical to create the physical. In order to perceive something, you need molecules touching something, and we won't lose that for a long time, and a lot of worlds and a lot of dimensions up. Higher dimensional aspect means more light, higher oscillation, moving faster. So back to the medbed upgrade. I always tell people, also, I don't call it a medbed, and don't get it confused. What you see behind me looks like a tanning bed. That is a repurposed hull, and electronics completely removed. This runs on a zero fuel technology. I sum up how I came up with the idea. It took me years and years and years to actually channel in and figure out how do holy places work. And why is it that people in the King's Chamber heal? Why is it that people close to the Niagara Falls heal? People in the canyons of Sedona or on the beach of Hawaii or in the jungle of Hawaii are healing. The holy well in France, in Lourdes, why is that water so highly ionic? Why is there healing capacities? And three, it sounds simple, but you have to find out these things by scrying, remote viewing through space and time, not just finding lost objects, but getting into the essence of the knowledge. What have these ancients actually built that leaves such an effect, such a profound effect on the organism, on life itself? And comparing UFO sightings and what are the effects of ships that come down and then leave. What does the ground look like? And that was one in the case with Travis Walton, was that the ship came down, he ran into the interdimensional beam. They have to keep him alive. He wasn't supposed to leave the timeline. But what people didn't pay attention, everybody wanted to know about the abduction. And I was more interested in what happened to the trees, to the grass, the soil, everything around there where this ship touched base. And this is where I pay attention. Well, everything according to the measurements they did, and videos that have been put on YouTube, then removed. I don't know who puts them up or whatever happens, but these things go weird and not commercial. And I saw that the pine trees down there for 15 years must have been touched by like something that accelerated natural growth and preserved them. And they looked at these chopped off tree stumps, and you can see that in that timeline where the ship came down, everything is completely pristine, almost age reversed and preserved, and outside it's decay and rot and falling apart. I'm like, if there's something that's life sustaining or life elongating, I'm not saying immortality in the vessel, which is another story. You know, the ancients could choose how long they would live, and they wouldn't live forever because there's things, you know, when sometimes it's time to make a change. You change a car, or you change your wardrobe, and you make new experiences. So, as in the ancients and superpowered avatars, Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, and many others that were the embodiment of fully realized beings, is having the photons, as in how does light come into the body, how is light translated in the body, having that in control. So I looked at, vitamins direct light, enzymes transport light, cells store light. I'm like, oh, interesting. So the entire vitamin and mineral stuff and cells and blood transports light. So the blood plasma. I'm like, okay, basically the body is a gigantic universal light factory that transmutes energy going into it, into light, into a divine structure, so you can live. We have now realized that the heart is actually not an organ. It's a generator. It's a vorticular complex system that doesn't even create the pressure that we thought falsely that runs the blood through our veins. It actually zero fields your blood. They measured the chambers and the alignment, and it creates an implosion, as in bringing the elements in and kind of like a inverted nuclear system, and zero fields it so the energy can go through your body, because this is a divine system. And Greg Braden said that in his book, God, Elohim, eternal within the body. That's stored within the Gattaca code, cross-referenced with Hebrew text. So I don't think that's a coincidence that there's things written in us by the manufacturer. There are holy and divine things in alignment. And if you don't understand the alchemy when reading holy books, you're lost in the myth. And I'm more concerned about the wellness. How can I create something of an energy aspect that can invoke a change in the body for the betterment of wherever that person is? And I'm not making any claims. Read the testimonials of people that have experienced these things and what has occurred. This is what speaks for itself. So what's in this medbed is we have orgone plates, and I'm using more than William Reich used to have a higher dimensional aspect to go in. I use nanospherical quartz sand that is charged on a light level that's called 10 to the 23rd hertz. That's how high they oscillate. And everybody, is so trapped in like 10 dimension, 9 dimension. And so we went into the 23rd dimension by looking at when does the RNA in the cell begin to repair the cell? Like actually scientific proof, when does the cell have the capacity to repair itself? And that's my interest. How does this with the body work? When I say wellness begins at the atomic level, and very simple. When you have too many electrons stored in your body, and the negative influence of the environment and the body is too much and overwhelming, your little reactors, your cells, your nucleoids, your atomic structure begins to carry more cations. And these are positively charged ions. And when that happens, the body gets sick over time. And if you have an accumulation that's big enough, the sickness will manifest in the flesh. Well, that is when it actually reaches the density of the body level. And we want to work on preventing that, or getting people out of that, by looking at the atomic structure, by inspiring a surrounding environment with the medbed that projects photons on a 23rd dimensional level into the cell. Like basically kind of like imagine elves of light dancing through your aura, and they leave divine information. And then your body goes, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. You know, that's why people go in like rehab Niagara Falls, because the negative ions are in the billions per cubic square. Get an ion meter, be in your home and measure the negative ions. And you'll probably be surprised to see you only have 300 per cubic square. Well, that's not enough to stabilize health. That's you living under the electrocuted grid of your house with 60 hertz coping. But a dwelling place shouldn't be a survival place. It should be a temple. It should be a place, it should be a sanctuary where you reboot, you get well, you get better, and you recover, and you come into your divine self. And this has been taught by the ancients. This is taught by the ETs. So basically, the bed has negative ions in the billions, and you can measure that with an ion meter. It has rare earth magnets at the base to create an axiotonal magnetic alignment for grounding. That has to do with like when your blood understands the natural earth magnetism, you're actually grounded. You have an orientation of time and space and where you are. And most of the human race is not grounded because we have sneakers, insulators, we live in homes that are no longer connected to earth. So we're a little bit out of balance. And since not everybody can live in the jungle forever or do the, I don't know, the hippie off-grid thing, we have to think about modalities. How can we bring those energies into house and home and stabilize the living? Cell towers, all of this EMF projective stuff that we're under, and even the satellites. And you can, if you have highly expensive equipment like RF frequency meters that are like from $500 to like $3,000, you can measure the gigahertz coming at you. From military bases to other institutions, we have measured like up to like 8 gigahertz. It's just blasting through the neighborhood. And they show that when the cell structure is being hit by that, it creates a latent depression. And we want to get away from that. So repurpose what's being projected at us to create a better living environment for the human species and for all of us. And then document how this can be better for the people. The resistance that we're having, unfortunately, is, that's a story of mankind. I had a talk with a guy who was into religions and way of life and spiritualism, and he said, did you realize that every time we have a messiah or a spiritual being or a leader or a Tesla, we destroy, we kill them, we ridicule them, we corruption, money, and we shut it down. So it's not all the government, MIB, Men in Black, and all of this stuff. It's the people that are greedy, they can't take it, that somebody has as an inventor, has an idea that you didn't have, but it's for the betterment of mankind. If we would have followed that, we would have right now Tesla towers, and we wouldn't have electricity as an alternating current. We would have earth current, and it's called magnetricity. And magnetricity is actually healing. So when you run from a Wardenclyffe tower, your house, you can run that on a Schumann resonance. Basically not stuck on 7.83 hertz. You can go from 1 to 7 and go boop, 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 and be in your house, and it has a healing effect as you're using the modern day technology. So in the bed, accumulation of negative ions, photons, magnetic plates, and orgone energy. And when you have that, you create a column wave, an electromagnetic EMF, which is a natural one. This runs on no electricity. This runs on a natural occurring field in and around the house and its surrounding environment. Pyramids are not plugged in. They're plugged into the earth grid. Yes, they are. And that's what I replicated. And without having to build a pyramid, when you know what elements to put together, you can create a cumulative process of these super lenses that bring in tachyon energy that actually... The tachyon, as you can say, tachyon, that moves in when the column wave is stabilized. And when that technology is embodied, then other energies come in. It's like when you, in the ancient fairy tales, when you put a lot of crystals in your garden, well, you have more elves. That means when you deal with more elemental technology, you will have interfaces appearing, helping you and assisting in what you're doing. And this is where the planet is ready for. It's been quite a struggle because people dismiss and they don't want to do it. And I have met people that rather be sick or take some synthetic stuff that numbs them, where the alternative actually is the way out, and they can get better. So we also, the ET says the problem that we're having with communicating with you guys is also cognitive dissonance. That people are, it's like I'm speaking Mandarin or something and you don't understand what I'm saying. When I say, well, maybe it's more pleasant to paint your fence in a natural color and a light color surrounding your house, bringing the light back to your house instead of a neon green, and everybody in the house gets sick. It has to do with frequency and studying and knowing the alchemy. And a lot of people don't know the alchemy. Just, they think this is a free will planet. I can do what I want to do no matter the consequence. But everything you do, everything you say has a consequence. So when we rectify this, people get different ideas. So one thing I can share with which I call the cell well is that people have reported that they've been kind of like the consciousness was on a ship. They were told what planetary origin they are. They had a briefing within 15 minutes. They go to sleep. They go into a trance-like state, and they feel better. Base level of wellness. And when that's controlled, imagine what can happen if we bombard the molecules in your body from every angle with the correct frequency, so the surrounding environment can actually be sucked in and repurposed by your body to get better. I say the possibilities are endless. So we're here, we're experiencing now. We're already producing these cell wells. They're already going into circulation step by step. And we have phenomenal responses, that's all I can say. And people can make their own experience with their own wellness integration and consciousness. And with wellness comes also remembering your past life, having the capacity to astral travel or lucid dream or get into magic powers. Everybody wants magic, magic, magic. But if your body is, let's say, full of parasites because you're eating processed foods, and mind you, organic food is a little bit of a myth because the entire food factory on the industrialized planet, the soil is fertilized. So there is no organic. So even if you burn wood from Home Depot, you have all the chemicals from how it was treated when you burn it. When you burn fallen wood from trees that are untouched from nature, and you use that ash, you have original ash, and that actually is the only thing that fertilizes the ground is crystalline compound, natural ash, or oyster powder from oyster. When they fish oysters and they don't use it, they crush it. That can be used to have your acres run for 1,000 years instead of 7 years. And in the Bible, the influencers from outer space knew this when they said that every 7 years you shall switch the acres, because they knew that the globalization of food production will deplete the soil over time. So somebody had some knowledge there. So I find those little essential tidbits to be on my way to give you a different experience and try my best to help enhance what's necessary for you to get better. And again, let me point out, when you pioneer stuff, it always feels like you have a lot of arrows in your back. Thank God times have changed. We have way more people being pro than con. But here's what happened to the Wright brothers that built the plane that flew with a motor. You have to imagine the level of consciousness that back then the consensus of the scientific community said a plane that is heavier than air, that is motorized, is physically impossible, will never see the light of day, will never fly, that is impossible. So we're not even talking anti-gravitic systems right now. We're talking a propeller paper plane that will fly. So they had everybody, the Wright brothers had everybody against them, nobody believing in what and these are the chosen ones that channeled in, they could see in industry, they had specs and graphics, and if you find sketchbooks of the Wright brothers, you'll be amazed of what you find, what they pre-produced before this even was seen for the commercial people. Well, they found an investor, and I think in France, that said, you know what, I believe in what you're doing, what do you need to build this thing? And despite the fact that everybody in America argued against them and said, it's an abomination, even, the churchgoers said that you're dealing with the devil, this can't be no good. You have to understand how backwards we are because we're so conditioned to not progress. I'm here to teach you also to get out of that. So the plane was produced, the plane flew, and now look at where we are with planes in the sky. Now we're coming with electromagnetic cars. There will be other things developed that will run cities and will blow your mind. So get ready for that and buckle your seatbelt, because for things to happen that take place, your belief system is not required. But BS requires you to believe in it and to sustain it. And that's the crux that we're in. And when we see that, hey, the sky is blue, nothing needs to be reinvented. Just follow the flow of nature so we can all evolve and get better. And that's why I'm here. How I believe aging works is I believe this has to do with programming and system settings. That has to do with, you have to go into really, like, if you don't know this, there's an alchemy about the cell and the nucleus of the cell and the consciousness of an atom that goes into theosophical minds, where you have to understand or understand how the inner mechanisms of cellular structure in the body works, how numerically everything is correct in the body. 33 vertebrae, 33 years of Christ disappearing. This is not Christ disappearing. These are numerical alpha codes that are only for the scholars to read, to understand, like 33rd degree Mason, like the grand mastership is when the frequency of your pranic system and the chakras has you can say, an electric phase compression of the plasma running through these number codes and is correct, you can stop aging. And if you forget that, the Egyptians call it the Ka body, which is the plasmic body of yourself, then you die in forgetfulness, which is what happens to the human race. We have amnesia. So aging is predominantly a programming aspect of this interdimensional vessel, which is a carbon-based soul carrier in a natural sense. Like it can be used as a module for a soul to explore dimensions on many different levels, not just Earth. And aging came in, I think, through manipulation of extraterrestrials. When for those who study the Bible, read the Bible from a technical point of view. There is, when the Tower of Babel fell, the so-called God, which I think was Enlil, said, "Ye shall no longer grow older than 120 years." That's written in the Bible. So somebody knows some scientific aspect of, okay, we're gonna limit your aging process. So I think that we have been genetically modified to age faster and deteriorate faster. So, you read the books of Methuselah and Noah, that these dudes were like 700 years old, 900 years old. There are these Zoroastria, or these Sarkadian and Akkadian kings. And in the list of kings, it says ruled for 20,000 years. You have to think, one being ruled for 15,000 years. And they were like 20 feet tall, embodied way more soul capacity than we today. We're kind of like shrimp. We're like very minute to where we used to be, as in magnetically, with magic, and cosmically, and the alignment. And so, yeah, aging to me, when you look at the cell and you look at the biochemical reaction between cells and the informational data that's being exchanged, has to do with programming. And our aging, I think, has to do with infiltration. When we don't have spiritual maturity in a short amount of time, we reincarnate with amnesia or more slaves to be controlled. And we are learning now to outgrow that mechanism. So that's so much I have to say, the aging. The medbeds that I've seen in future timelines and realities don't have any time travel components. Side note also, unsanctioned time travel fractures the soul. If you go into areas that are not assigned for you for your timeline and coordinates without protection, and you influence that wrong, first of all, you're not going back to the same timeline, you're fracturing it, you're creating fractals. This goes infinite, but if you create echoes that have an influence on you, that you end up in a dissension planet or a fallen system like we did with this entire universe here. And we're correcting that now. So time travel, very cautious, very careful. These are corrective parameters that, let's say you have a disk in your computer and you want to defragment the disk, but in order to do that, you have to go back in time. Well, if you don't know the divinity and the components of how time fractalizes and time dimensions and time octaves are combined together, and you don't know what you're doing, you actually fractalizing yourself in an undivine way, and that's unsanctioned, and that's also not allowed. And it's a lot of crap happened that we have to shovel this goo right now, because a lot of unsanctioned time travels took place that fractured a lot of timelines. But these timelines influence all other timelines. Everything influences each other. And so when, let's say, a timeline gets dark, you saw that in Doctor Strange, the multidimensional universe of madness, and the other Doctor Strange, where she shows when a fractal is created and it goes dark, that's actually reality. The monks in Nepal, which actually the movie was in part, like the emulation of it was shot, is they know this. Well, that is like you creating a dark strand in the mycelium network of time, and that needs to be undone by doing actually the correct measurements and divine movements in time travel. So my bet doesn't go into time travel, and we have yet to understand also what that is. It's not just, hey, let's go to 1914 and change something. It's not precisely how this works. It's a multi-dimensional, infinite, reflected mirror rooms that are fractally interwoven into this one infinite entity, where you can correct stuff to have a divine flow as a divine timeline being created. So what from the wellness is, from the basic deal is, what this bed does, it creates a bioresonance. Like, if you put a potato in a root cellar, it lasts a year. You put a potato on a kitchen table, it lasts 4 days. Anybody can do that at home. If you put a kilogram of quartz crystal in a bowl of milk, the milk will turn to yogurt in 3 or 4 days. That has to do with resonance. But if you have milk just sitting on a counter, well, it'll rot, it'll decay, it'll go crappy. Same thing for our universe and how we're living. Negentropic, like a universe built on decay through time. And when you kind of slow down time, or you're in a zero field, you stop that. So also all program mechanisms of aging are based on a time distortion. You can read that in the law of one. There are levels of distortion that actually upset where we're going and how we're growing and how we evoluting, if that's even a word. So what I do, my bet I saw in the vision, is I'm copying you past the speed of light in an instant in the higher dimensional aspect of yourself. And then your lower self and higher self begins to do comparative data. They did this with petri dishes in the lab, where you take a sick cell and then you take a healthy cell and you put them in close proximity. There's something with, as in bioresonance happening, and you can do that with objects. Take something that's a 432 hertz case here, and you put a 432 case here, and then you hit that case without touching this. This other one goes in resonance. But if this is here, this is just hint why I'm doing this. You have a 440 hertz case and a 432, and you hit this, quiet. It doesn't transmit the information because it's not in resonance. So henceforth, we have to understand to every thought you bring in is an octave of a resonance. And that defines the dimensionality and density and octave in which you're cruising. So what I'm doing is, when they say when you go towards God one step, he comes, or it comes 3 steps towards you, is I'm making you go into higher resonance with your higher potential self. And in response, the body is enabled to go into repair mode. What happens to people that have tested those cell modules, you'll have to read online. We're collecting data right now. And so far, I'm very, very happy. It's phenomenal what happens. And even the naysayers, I had a skeptic, funny story, that he's like, this is all suggestible, I don't know. I mean, I put you in a magnetic field, there's difference. You can do this in school, spin a magnet under mung bean sprouts, and they grow like this. It's not magic, it's alchemical science. It's knowing what to, you have nitro, you have glycerin, you put it together, you do this, it'll explode. Nobody can explain why that is on the atomic level somewhat, but we don't really know. But we just know, put this and this together, this is what happens. You put yellow and green together, it turns to blue. We can't quite explain why that is, but we know there's a certain spectrum of light colors, refractive and reflective colors that create a certain color spectrum when you mix them. So that's called alchemy, and that's the higher and supreme science, and that's the only magic that's to be realized, not like Harry Potter waving a wand and then things fly because it's just imaginary pixie dust and pixels flying. This all has to do telekinesis, teleportation, levitation, clear gustant, clear audience, clairvoyant is all based on the skill of alchemically mastering the temple of self. And the most developed ones, of course, they can perform magic tricks. They can be here, there, walk to other worlds. We used to be able to do that, and we lost that because we got so involved in to be distracted in what has a lower density. So my bed basically reflects you back to that possibility of the ascension where we used to be and reminds you it's like, let's say in a lake, the acidic level is very bad, fish are not really thriving, and then you put natural mineral salt in there and you change the frequency and the lake comes back. Because once the lake is inspired to come back, it'll do that. And in nature, we have seen this can work with crystalline technology that's not electrically based. Waters will alkalize, pH level will regulate, fish will return, algae will disappear. Everything can return when it's inspired to return. So like imagine there's a bad kid in school and he's always the downer and upsets everybody, and the other kids are gifting him, I'm loving and giving him love and inspire the guy to stop bickering, stop bitching. All of a sudden he gets better, he brings cake to class, he stops fighting the other kids, he stops stealing the toys, he gets better. Well, that's called bioresonance. We have inspired a particle to make the better and the divine choice. And this is the main purpose for this, you can say, wellness modality, to inspire you that you could change the state of being at any given time and nobody is to stop you, and even the non-believers can stop you, because once it's real, it's manifest and it is there, and then we can take witness and take notes and marvel. The ET medbeds have is an interesting story because they asked Elizabeth also on another channel which I watched, why I want to bring this in here. Why is it that they have all this high tech up there? Why are they not giving it to us? Why are they not coming down here? And then she replied, so there's this law of non-interference. But it's a very tricky situation because some angels or some ETs came in and manipulated, picked their spiritual leaders, created diversions. There's a lot of politics, as in polished tricks, were involved with beings coming in here and kind of breaking the rule, which we're still trying to fix. So the so-called medbeds that they have on ships are high-tech to a level where, yeah, up there they can regrow limbs. Down here we can't do that because our consciousness is not ready to accept it. That's a problem. And they will also not come here and give us the technology because you have other beings that are of more of a density stepping in and saying, okay, how can we militarize that? How can we abuse that? So they're not going to say, well, here's anti-gravitic, here's a medbed, here's how you regrow limbs. It's not going to happen because we're not ready to receive that yet. You see how hard it is to individuals like me to bring that forth and just begin. This is the beginning and the allowance to not be so explosive or disruptive, so people can learn to accept it, and there's still resistance, and they're watching that. So of course they're reluctant to come and say, well, here are the gifts, you don't have to work for it. They want us to embody what we create, to be responsible for our stuff, because back in Atlantis we were not. We abused, we misused, we sank Atlantis. We blew up planets like Maldek and others, and the maturity will be achieved by channel this in, like I do it, through your own divinity. Keep it pure with everything that you have. Do not, they say, please do not corrupt, because the biggest problem on earth is not the Anunnaki, not the Draconians, not the Archons, it's human corruption. You being gullible, letting yourself being influenced by entities that are not your friend, and they said it in this one crop circle, beware of the bearers of false gifts and false hope. The devil is not ultimately a demonic creature that's two-horned and whatever the church depicts it as. Is what evil is something that gives you an illusion that leads you on. misleads you. And as far as I'm concerned, evil can be a chipmunk in your backyard. He's also cute, but he's undermining you, is under your house, going under your temple, and dismantling you while you're playing with an animal. Think it's also cute because you're fooled by external appearances and by labels that give you meaning because your ego, as an edging God out, you give that meaning. And we got to step away from that. So up there in space, it's like what I've seen what the Arcturians have is holographic. These medbeds are like, see, you have to understand, with a basic hobbit mind or muggle mind, you're not going high tech. You have to leave this concept of the basic consciousness. I had people saying, well, how come there are no blinking lights? This is not high tech and all the technology. And they think the more intricate the technology is, the more you are safe. Well, look at your cell phone. This technology is so compartmentalized and so tricky that you wouldn't know if you listen to or who can track you, because it's also super technical. Is that the way to go? My question. I learned from the Arcturian Council that it's the simplified the technology is the way to go. Like a generator can be a cube, which is a rock that has interdimensional programming that you can't detect. Watch the movie The Last Mimsy. When the kid holds the rock, he sees the programming aspect and the hologram that rock produces. And the mom says to the kid, it's just a rock, honey. It's just a rock, because she can't see it. The dude is holding high tech in his hand that teaches him how to build a time tunnel through time and space so the ET can fix their gene pool. So again, another disclosure movie, The Last Mimsy. I suggest watch it. Very insightful. So I have no blinking lights, no electricity, no computers and data bits and running and all this stuff. I'm using, break it down, the hull of a tanning bed, because that's what I require to come close to the Atlantean or Arcturian beds that I've seen. And I use crystalline technology to enhance a resonance for a person being surrounded by it, and almost like in a Faraday cage type, almost shielding you, bringing you into another time dimension. And people came with equipment and measurement devices, and they all measure stuff, but they cannot all figure out or compute what in overall it does. And for that, you need to be a psychic scientist. Not a logical, left brain oriented that follows the protocol of the university. This is what's being studied. This is what's accepted. This is what's not accepted. For me, as I say, is when you experience those things and you go into higher tech, how does it feel? What is the experience for you that you feel inside this modality? And that explains why people out there in Ireland, they're running through some ruins. A guy had a tumor and he sits between these rocks with these grooves, they're granite rocks, and he felt his hair standing up. And then 4 weeks later, his doctor, checks his X-ray, and the lump is gone. And the doctor's like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "Well, I remember that I got better after sitting in that space with just two rocks." But this is primitive for in our eyes technology. But I say, do not underestimate what the ancients knew. How do you think the Gizeh Plateau is built on a solid rock foundation? It's not moving. The pyramid's probably over 1 million years old and it doesn't decay. But how come that the cities that we build today are decaying? We need to patch them up. We need to fix our homes. Nothing lasts because they're not sustainable, because they're built out of the divine order. You can say the galactic feng shui is so out of order that a pyramid building aligned to the poles would outlast any city known to men. When the alchemy. Also, having to embody being a grandmaster, like a grandmaster Jedi, you have to embody the magic by knowing the science that you propagate, that you promote. Like this guy, Slim Sperling, who created these spun type copper wire and rings. And what I learned when he was alive and at the videos I saw, he said he feels the molecules dancing in the copper. And then my system's turned on. And when I develop a pendant, like a photon pendant, which is like a smaller modality, like, let me see. It's going to crumble a little bit on the microphone for a minute. So now it won't, you would probably hear something. Anyway, so I develop modalities by feeling into the field. What does an atom look like? how is an atom has these C-type structures and these glowing things inside that I see psychically? Why are they spinning? And they tested psychics. There's a book I highly recommend, a scientific book called Occult Science, where they had people touching gold and they would draw out the subatomic structure of a gold molecule. And that I find amazing. So a little story to bring this like to a crescendo is to feel nature, to feel technology is the highest level of development you can have when you investigate something, not just by books. So they checked the natives doing the rain dance. And so they monitored them doing 180 this way, 180 the other way, and then 360 degrees in a circle. And then they asked these shamans and the dancers, why do you dance that way? And they said, well, the spirits, you want to animate the spirits to dance with us. And when they dance with us, it rains. And I said, what does it feel like? Yeah, it's exciting, it's electric. So they feel the ions in the air. So we have observed in rain clouds, guess what the water molecules do? 180 left, 180 right, 360 degrees left. And that's the dance. And when they do that, they get heavy, they accumulate water, the dance is going boom, 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 boom. And then the entire thing in the cloud does this movement and then shh, it rains. That's the magic by embodying technology that's already given by nature. Because nature doesn't require us. We require nature to learn and to take notes. And it will reveal to us how it works when we sit and listen. When we get off our ego. And to end this is the Big Bang is an illusion that's created by a finite thought, thinking you can go back in time and this is where it all began. The ETs told me this is an infinite creation of everything that always was, forever will be. No beginning, no end. And you cannot fathom the entirety of that. So don't try to figure out how the universe was created because it's preposterous. And that's the reason why amoebas don't have political arguments, nor build bridges. Why people would ask, why don't you build it like a pyramid? Well, my download confirmed that it's not necessary. And from looking at the ancients, they had these pods that they lay in. And they wouldn't live in the pyramid. Krokalov, if I have that right, I always get that name wrong, who built the I think the biowell to scan the coronal field of the human body, measure the pyramids. And he suggests do not live in a pyramid. Don't sleep under a pyramid. Be next to it. You want to be in the circumference of the toroidal field. It's more beneficial than you are in the center stage because it's just being too agitated to get into healing modalities. That is not healthy. Also, King's Chamber is good for meditation as the central point of a pyramid. And the pituitary and pineal gland activation up to like, I don't know, if I have to lie, 68% of more biochemical activity happens in the unfinished chamber that is timeless. So we haven't even investigated how does a pyramid actually function. So if you have a pyramid, put it next to your bed, not over your bed. That's a myth that is overproduced. I had a friend of mine that slept under a pyramid and her nose would bleed. And I said, just remove that and put it to the side and the bleeding stops. You know, you don't want to put an 11-year-old in a freaking Bugatti and just overdo it and just go, wow, wow, and nobody has control. You have to find modalities in moderation to learn those energies. So when you're a surfer and you're a beginning surfer, you don't take a 15-footer, you take a 2-foot wave. And you learn and then you build your way up. Same with energies, you know. You don't step into the Niagara Falls and let's take a shower. You know, it'll just disintegrate you, the water masses. So, but let's go into the midst of it from a distance, so we can actually get into the beneficial idea of what it means to be close to a pyramid. And when we had scried with my friend Lincoln, higherself.com, we went back in time and we saw the pyramids were gold. They had crystalline tops, beams going out. They were so bright that everything was way, way brighter than actual daylight. And people that would live in the area of the pyramids were healthy. If you would leave that and go to a lower density cities, you would age, you would die. And the ETs back then knew this. When people returned and they were gray, they're like, oh, you've been away for a very long time. You went with the mortals. And when they went back into living close to the pyramidal system, which is a biodynamic life force downloader that keeps you actually smart, keeps your IQ up, and keeps you in check, then you're fine. And we need to build communities that are built on those biodynamic principles, because a building can make you dumb or a building can make you smart. People don't know that. It has to do with the flow of energies. People ask me, do you have to be vegetarian, or can you be a meat eater? Can you be a starchitarian or a flexitarian? I mean, I hear all of those words. I get so many labels, so lost in labels. It's just, to me, it's a little bit of a funny thing here. I say, to whatever the modality of food you take in, look at your blood type and what are you designed to eat for thousands of years. Not following a trend or having no idea what you're doing. Eating in a timely fashion, rhythmically according to what you are in resonance with. Type O negatives have to eat this. A plus has to eat this. So eat in resonance, whatever it is, vegetarian or meat. Stop the war amongst each other. Both food produces create CO2. Nobody's free of sin here. Green actually carries more parasites than meat, and people fight over this. But if a baby gets sick and it needs chicken soup, then my grandma was like, stop all of this nonsense, give him chicken soup, and the little one's coming back and maybe not ending up in the ER. Those cases have happened. And find a way to eat the food with respect, whether it's green or meat, in moderation, not overproduce, not unnecessary anything, and respect the architect of the divine and listen to your guides, to your oversoul, to your overself, of what you are in resonance with. Feel into it, and that's the modality you shall choose to be in this here. And if you do it right, like a diver, you don't drop too fast in depth. You don't want to rise too fast to the surface. You want to tether in so you're not upsetting the system. If this system is upset, then there's something wrong. And I don't care what you eat or what you don't eat. If it's not good for you, it's not good for the planet. If it's good for you, it's good for the planet. Everything is connected. How I'm getting my inspiration is outer space, my higher self from the future. And I watch cartoons and predominantly sci-fi and fantasy and impossible things, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you watch it and people go like, this doesn't make any sense. But when it doesn't make any sense, you lose your ego because you have no more comparison. And when my brain is overloaded by art or things I have no comparison, I actually learn. I'm actually getting better. And that is the focus, to let in the impossible through art and experimentation and playfulness, to see, as kids, we built waterways. Like, we poured some water out, build a little tunnel system, and watched it. How does water find its way, in building according to what we find? So I'm curious. I want to know. And then I have my Arcturian Timeline Council downloads, Sasani briefings, and other beings, in rare cases mantids, that are very high dimensional. They're not so physical. They're like golden pixelated almost. They're scientific brain and conscious modulation and surgeons. They operate on you as in repairing your brain, because kind of the human race, we're all like a little bit damaged goods. But anything art that is phenomenal overload, where I realize we haven't been there before, inspires me. When I see something I haven't seen before, or I hear something or feel something I haven't felt before, I'm trying to find a way of an integral process to bring it in here, and let people witness it, to refine, expand, and amplify. As we took the Cellwell to the expo in LA, it kind of blew up the spot. People couldn't believe that we actually have something in physical form. I had so many people calling me, and after I had posted it on Facebook, people said, this is CGI, this is an animation, this is not real. And as you can see, it's in physical form. We have people currently patient in there, people experiencing it. And I had some experiences, which we can be playful with that. We're not making any claims. Lady was a little feisty, a little skeptical. She lays in the bed, and after like 12 minutes, she comes out. She's like, I was on a ship. I had on a spacesuit, and I was briefed And apparently I'm Arcturian. Not everybody's Arcturian. There were other galactic nations involved that just came to and said they had the most phenomenal experience in that thing. What is this made of? I mean, it doesn't run on electricity. I had a lady that had a swollen foot, couldn't put on her high heels, wanted to run around, look good. I laid in that thing for 8 minutes, and then the inflammation, went back, and she could put on her shoe. And we have everything documented, pictures. So it's a lot of work we want to create like a big video with interviews and testimonials and data where people can see, well, there's something changing. Where people are like, I feel actually better. We had a dog that jumped into the thing, wouldn't want to get out. It was all cozy. There was I think an 8-year-old star child, blue eyes, pupils almost as big as the entire eye spectrum, totally on. And she's like, this is good. This is going to help people. And she's like, she was 9 years old, telling me I had some digestive issues. I'd like to try this bed. Can I lay in it for a minute? And we let her lay in there. She came out and she's like, my tummy is fine. I like it. Good work. Keep it going. And I felt this ancient soul talking to me. And I'm like, if kids have this response in animals, I have no questions, Your Honor. I rest my case. And there was somebody who felt another one that was another experience. He felt very detached. He saw his head kind of like in the vision in the bed, not attached to his body. And then he said that his head was put back to his body. He realized he was so in his head. He said, almost traumatizing, but in a gentle way, very profound experience what it means to be with your consciousness, not so much in your head, be in your body, be in life, and be in the presence. So I'm like, this is the beginning of the wellness magic as in realized, and people will share more of the experience. And maybe later on you can share something of your experience when you were in there, when you fell asleep and really got into a relaxed mode. And we had people, we can do this with a camera, that are all like wrinkled and stressed and the face all tense, and they came out of the medbed and it looked like as if somebody had stretched their face. They looked rejuvenated. So I know when the cells have room to breathe and there's some air and there's some relaxing going on, rejuvenation can take place when you de-stress the body. And that doesn't require superior science or some magical chemical super cream to do that. And the future will be, I want to build ascension chambers and ascension places where you're completely in a Faraday cage. And this thing is in another Faraday system where I'm completely taking you out of the distortion and soundproof and lightproof to have even deeper lasting effects. It's a therapeutic device. I tell people this is not an overnight miracle. Sometimes people have certain densities. I had a lady that was in a coma and she said I literally saved her life. She is not so disheveled anymore and more coherent and in the body. And she did several sessions that brought her back, made her more coherent, calmed down, making more sense, being in life, and being ready to live life and having also the will to live life. And a lot of people have, the first level is before any visions and epiphanies occur, go to sleep. Then they do several sessions more, and then they have their visions or they're being contacted, and they share their experience, which is wonderful. And I will illustrate more on that once I have more online things going on as we're collecting the data right now. The cell well is available. The cost will be evaluated when you call my galactic commander, Mrs. Azores. And the number is on my website. Click on the bracket medbed, there's a phone number, leave a message, she will return your call. The website is ra-key.com. And there are also sessions being offered in Sedona that will be also evaluated and arranged when you leave a phone call with Commander Azores and make your own experience, get your own impression. And I tell people, Bashar says follow your highest excitement. I say follow what resonates for you. Well, our subject that is in the medbed is basically, you can say partially in an altered state. And I can't wait for her to come out and describe what she experienced emotionally, visions, pictures, whatever the body begins to display. Because to wrap it up, this is sentient technology. This thing will talk to your soul will talk to it, and it knows. There is no betrayal or skipping lines or anything. This will reflect ultimately where you are with what is, and goes to what is the most, like the cells that need the most light, or that what needs the most insight. That's where this consciousness will move to. This is conscious, sentient, higher dimensional technology.
Hi, my name's Moira, and I just had a long session in this med bed. And I can honestly say I felt a lot of change happen, like layers and layers, like of the only thing I could relate it to maybe is what might be felt like lifetimes and lifetimes of different experiences just coming off, and flashes of different creatures and beings and spaces and places that I've in this earth life never experienced or seen. And relief in asking for things in my body to change. I have some old injuries that are healing, and I felt these healings happen, which was super exciting. And so there's that, and a deep expanded sense of self, so much so that the soul traveling, the journey was a little bit like being the ship, going through space and seeing all the stars just flashing by you as I was going someplace to meet a very large group of elders that knew me, which was super exciting to see them again. And they were from many different races and places, all human-like, but they look very different. And so that was a very exciting meeting. It's like bringing those expanded spaces real here in the 3D, and asking for healing for humanity, not just myself.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.